that's the signal that you cut. That's
no, that's a single.
Right there?
Yeah. No, you... Eric.
You don't clap after.
But I wanted to do it too.
Okay, fine.
We'll let you be the one that does it then.
Can I do it?
Yeah.
Oh, now there's so much pressure though. Okay.
Be it in the grim darkness of the far future, or on the blood-soaked battlefields of the old world, a secret cabal of casuals meets under the cover of night to argue about their plastic army men. No local meta is safe, for they are the power creeps.
We're the Power Creeps.
Welcome to Power Creeps.
Welcome to Power Creeps, everybody.
We're broadcasting live from a recently renovated spare room. So who are we, Eric? You had a little thing.
We're the Kings of Casual, the commanders of the kitchen table, and we're here to basically just throw together a little podcast, talk about what we do.
We're not an authority in tabletop gaming by any means. When we were hoping that some kind of a fresh perspective that doesn't often get thrown around is, from the perspective of non-tournament players, non-competitive.
We're competitive amongst ourselves.
I'm not afraid of you guys, but those other people, they'll leave me alone.
We're basically GW's intended audience. We're the ones that are spending all the money every month to buy these new things that they keep putting out, and we're
buying
the ones
models that we never paint, and one day.
And we're the ones that are sitting down playing this game that they're trying to throw out at us right now.
Who better to bounce ideas off of?
Hey, how are you?
I just wanted you to know your models are looking good. You're getting better with your paint schemes. Your army's unoptimized shit though. It's because you like lore. I know you're a dirty lore whore. You like having a good rich backstory for your armies, for your dudes. You're one of us.
You're probably one of those guys that sits there and thinks it's okay to foot slug Eldar across the table. Didn't bring a Jet Seer Council or anything.
You fucking lore whore.
Like, I get having Eldar not in vehicles because of your crazy infantry fetish, but why move them forward?
Yeah.
It's like, I get that their guns are 12 inches, but it's like, that's for
Let them come to you.
That's the oh shit button.
We should probably lend some credibility to ourselves rather than just be people sitting in a room talking about Warhammer.
No one does that.
Let's bring it all the way to my far right over here. Micah, you wanna tell us about yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I guess we can start there. So I got into the hobby 4th edition? Yeah, it was 4th edition. I was hanging out with my buddy Ian here, and he was showing me his Space Wolves. I was like, oh, this is really cool, but I like a shooty army. The Tau had just been coming out, and I was like, hey, I like myself some robots.
My boy Micah here, he loves him some Halo, and
love me some snipers.
Really likes the Covenant, and I was like, you know what? Hey, I've got a zealous religious alien faction here for you. Let's go with the Tau.
Yeah, started with Tau, had my Farsight. I ran Farsight enclaves mostly just because I loved having all the crisis suits. Started doing the Dark Eldar, and then I went into my Blood Angels, and I've been collecting those two for a while. And then we recently went on to the AOS kick, started collecting AOS armies. I had a Lizardman army from back when Fantasy was still going on.
They're not called Micah, they're not called that anymore.
Seraphin. Then I moved on to Sylvaneth, and then I just started collecting Tzeentch for Path to Glory we're going to have coming up.
That'll be fun. We're going to try and record that, actually. So if you guys like Path to Glory with true, real rolls for the entire force, we'll be posting that as soon as we kind of get the ball rolling on that.
Yeah, as soon as we get our shit together.
Yeah.
Built and painted and all that. So yeah, I think that caps me out at what? Tau, Dark Eldar, Blood Angels, Seraphin, Sylvaneth, Tzeentch. God, Flesh Tear. Yeah.
Flesh Eater Courts.
Flesh Eater Courts. Yeah. Oh boy. All right. Target audience right here.
Yep.
That's 7 armies under the belt.
How many of them have you never played?
I've played all of them.
Okay.
I can honestly say I have played all of. I also have Harlequins.
Oh, no,
I haven't played them. I have a full, oh god, probably like 1850 if I kitted everything out well. Harlequins I've never played.
Weren't you thinking about starting Sisters of Battle? You should just do it.
No, Sisters of Battle is something that I've always wanted to start, but I just...
So you have been thinking about it, you just won't do it.
We're not talking about thinking about, we're talking about
Well,
done.
I mean, we can talk about it.
I do own those.
We could talk about it right now. Like, just go drop it
When
in.
they come out with plastic kits for everything and they bring back their vehicles, then maybe.
That's never happening.
You could play him in Shadow War.
I could play them in Shadow War.
That'd be kind of fun.
Good, yeah.
I'm going to hand it over to Ian over here.
All
So
right.
why don't you give us a little...
My name is Ian, and I'm the worst kind of person.
You're a bad boy.
Yeah, I generally assume that it's really arrogant, but I usually assume that I'm better than everybody else all of the time, and so my quest to where I stand now, the main driving factor behind that, it's like, what's an army that I can make that's weak, and if I win, I'll look good doing it. It definitely did not start off there. I started off with Space Wolves. That was back when I was 16 and really into Viking metal, and I was like, these guys are cool, man. And so I picked them up right around the time Apocalypse was actually starting to happen. So I learned to play the game in Apocalypse. I would usually show up with like my little 500-point force, and I would basically be someone else's strategic asset, and they would use me as, we'd come up with, ways to kind of shoehorn me in there. But over time, I ended up amassing, I had about 3,000 points of Space Wolves until around the time that the 5th edition of Space Wolves update happened. Somewhere along the line there, I kind of got tired of them. Now it's fun. What I'm about to say might sound funny, but I wanted a challenge, so I picked up Eldar. Bearing in mind they were nothing like they are now.
Challenge in quotations.
Yeah. Well, in 4th edition, they had a pretty dated codex, at least at the time that I picked it up.
That was when they still had the Craft World book, right?
No, that was 3rd edition, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
But they had essentially chapter tactics for the different Forge Worlds, so you could. Oh man, I always forget its name. The Craft World, the Green and White Craft World.
Bealtan.
They had rules for Bealtan that let you roll with aspect warriors, more aspect warriors than normal in the Codex. But the problem with it was everything was overcosted, and the Eldar didn't have Shroud in their warlocks, and they were.
Oh shit! Okay, right there.
Oh, okay.
That's what I look for that.
If anybody's curious why we just had a weird step, the door just fell off the hinges.
No, we're editing that.
So we're good. No, I'm gonna edit it out, but we're gonna bring it in from here.
They will never know.
Well, I mean, they know now.
No.
I almost broke my toe, guys.
Yeah, that looked painful.
It
He
kind of
caught a door with his toe.
That's not an omen. I don't know what is.
All right. So yeah,
Eldar. All right, back
Eldar
to
Bealtan.
That'll be
Eldar,
the thumbnail, by the way. It'll be
Bealtan.
my broken toe.
Nice.
Oh,
For
God.
the episode.
No one wants to see that. Eldar were overcosted for a time, and I wanted to pick them up because they were kind of touted as like a glass cannon army. You can't defend them too well, but if they get into combat or if they get to shoot their targets, they rip it to shreds. That to me sounded cool. So I started collecting Eldar, and then the new Codex dropped for Eldar, and suddenly they were the hottest shit in town, and that kind of got to me because I felt like if I ever won, it wasn't me winning, it was the Eldar winning. So I was like, all right, what's the shittiest army I can play in 6th and 7th edition? Chaos. And that was the driving decision in picking up Word Bearers. I told myself, all right, these are two armies that I'm interested in. There's Word Bearers and there's Alpha Legion. I'm going to read 2 of the Horus Heresy books. I'm going to read First Heretic, and I'm going to read Legion. And whichever one impresses me more is going to be the one that I go with. And I only read First Heretic, and I was so impressed and so taken by Lorgar's struggles that I was like, yeah, this is a force for me. So I've been playing Chaos pretty steadily since then. Admittedly, not as into Age of Sigmar as these two guys are, but I do have Fire Slayers. I have Dark Elves. I have Dark Elves that I did play in the fantasy-themed game that shall not be named. And right now I'm currently working on Gene Stealer cults for Shadow War Armageddon. That might blossom into a force. Who knows? But yeah. What about you?
Oh, I don't really do anything, actually.
No?
I hate this game.
Oh yeah, Eric's just here to be our sound
No,
guy.
yeah, that's
we
really
don't
it.
really need him to talk.
That's it. I'm more of a hobby guy, honestly. I play as much as I can, but really I'm all about the building and collecting the armies, just cause. I have... God, what don't I have? So 40k I have...
That's a great place to start.
Yeah,
what
right.
don't I have?
Yeah, no, for 40k I have Orcs, Grey Knights, Space Marines. I have 2 chapters of Space Marines. I have my Space Sharks and I have the Salamanders. And these are all complete armies, by the way. They're not just stuff. I have about probably 15,000 points of Tyranids now.
Orcs.
Yeah, I said Orcs. I think that's it for 40k.
We'll come back if we don't, but...
Yeah, I'll scream it if I can remember something.
You're kind of getting the idea here. He has a lot of armies.
Well, that doesn't even cover fantasy.
Oh yeah, and then fantasy I have Bretonnians, I have Chaos Warriors, Ogres, I have Gutbusters, Beast Claw Raiders.
Yeah, gotta be specific now. Gotta be specific.
I have my Stormcast army, I have Iron Jaws. I'm starting the Khorne Bloodbound. I got that starting. I'm kind of excited about that one for the Path to Glory campaign. That'll be fun. And there's more. It's not really.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and then on the side I do commission painting. So that's one of the things that I always get to work on is other people's models. So
that's why he's swimming in models.
yeah, you'll see when we start doing battle reports. You'll see my models just like rush to tabletop standard, and then you'll see all of my opponents. They'll have beautifully painted armies, and chances are pretty good that they'll be like my work.
Yeah. If you see one of my armies, you're pretty much seeing something that Erik here has painted.
That's really it.
I love playing. I love playing the most. I love playing so much, I'd rather not build and paint. I would rather spend my time playing, because I remember back in the day we would all meet up and, bring our boxes and we'd break out the sprue and we'd be building and having coffee and, doing that sort of thing. Erik had, paper laid out so we could paint, but to me, the most fun I ever had was when we were actually playing. So I never really got into the hobby end. I built most of my Tau and some of my earlier forces just out of necessity because I wanted to play.
I think it's fair to say most of the memorable moments that happen, it's never like, when I got that last brush stroke and it all came together, it became real for me. It's when my wolf priest, stared down the Archiflagellants and was like, to hell with you. I'm gonna blast you back to Asaheim, motherfucker, and then just, shoots them with a plasma pistol and then charges in with his axe. It's like, I remember that. I remember when my lone badass did well, or my tank that never died, or
finally died.
Or when the unkillable tank finally got killed. The low moments too. Even the low moments, you can kind of look back and be happy with it.
Yeah. I usually just get my shit pushed in, so all of my fond memories are from building models.
Because you need to
but
get good.
But there's a difference, because when you finally, when you spend a lot of time building and painting, and you can finally sit back and look at your 1,000-point, fully painted based list, there's something in that that's just like, wow, this is what I've been working towards.
I can really see it right now. You remember my Centurion, my Salamander Centurion that I've spent hours and hours and bought so many different bits for, and he's really cool, guys. I'm gonna finally have him all painted and everything. I'm gonna put him on the battlefield, and turn 1 he's just gonna get shot right in the fucking head, and then it's gonna be like, well, okay,
just a vindicator to the face.
Yeah, that's what he's gonna do.
Well, there he goes.
That's the thing, you just need to dedicate some time, because I don't know about you, Erik, but often one wanders to tactics and what if scenarios, like when I'm getting ready to go to sleep at night and it's constantly just buzzing. It's like, how can I counter this, how can I counter that? When we were talking about doing our reenactment of doing my Galvorbach against your Custodes,
I have a Custodes army too.
Yeah.
You're gonna notice as we're talking, Erik's just gonna chime in with armies that he has. Like, oh, that's right, I do have that.
But the moment the gauntlet was thrown for that one, I was walking around work with an erection thinking to myself, it's like, I can beat him if this happens, and this happens, and this has to happen. It's going to be hard, but I know I can do it because I'm a smart boy. I'm going to make it happen. And so
you start running the scenarios
Yeah.
in your head of like, if I can get this psychic power off, and then I have these bodyguards still left alive, and I can
What honestly I never rolled with psychers, but the thing that made them more appealing to me was because it was always like another added element where it's, that I need these psychic powers to go off, and if they do, this attack is going to be more potent, and that's my favorite part about him. Like, do you ever get that way, Eric? Like,
No, I do, and I usually try to write some really. I try to lean towards more flavorful lists these days. At least I used to be a power monger, but I try not to do that anymore. Just because it's like, oh, okay, here's my. Oh shit! What's it called? The
Flying Circus?
No.
Oh, the Flying Circus kills me every time. Every
I'm
time.
talking
I'm
about
gonna 360 no scope you with my giant bug monster.
You telling me you don't like it when I run 3 Hive Tyrants? Oh,
Hive Tyrants.
I didn't realize you didn't like that.
It's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll just run my Tau and I'll just have a lot of stuff with.
Yeah. Okay.
With Skyfire. I'll
Great.
shoot him out of the sky.
The only list that I can run competitively, and you just bring a Riptide and you just say fuck
in
you.
it with a Riptide and some broadsides.
I think this is a good segue into our namesake and our topic for the day.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, why not?
We are the Power Creeps, which those of you that are familiar with the hobby,
The term should be familiar to you.
yeah. So that I think has been the source of a lot of strife in our group, because in our quest to play together, one thing that we're often forced to face is the glaring power imbalances that are prevalent in 40k.
Yeah, for example, if I really wanted to run my Tau, and it's like, okay, I'm going to try to make a list that's fun, but not too competitive, not too strong, and then regardless of whatever list I end up bringing, if you go against a codex that just hasn't gotten the love that the other codexes have, like Orcs and Tyranids, it's very hard to make a list that my opponent can have fun playing against, because as soon as I put down a Riptide, as soon as, an Eldar player puts down a Wraith Knight, you start getting a dynamic that's like, okay, you don't even need to run this in a formation. This is just by definition better than anything you have in your book.
It's priced more. It's priced more aggressively. Its weapons are better. It's just
you could double the price of a Wraith Knight and it's still worth bringing. And when you have a model like that, it's very hard to make a list that includes them that's not unfair unless your opponent is also bringing the cheese.
What do orcs get that's similar to the Riptide or the Wraith Knight? They get
The Gorkin Morkanaut, which is just trash. It's too expensive, and you just can't
It's not
use
worth
it.
the points.
It's not. You'll bring it if you want a cool looking model and you want to have kind of a fun, more themey list.
Yeah.
But realistically, it's not doing you any favors.
A Stompa can run out of bullets.
Yeah, that's
a
that's
Stompa can run out
ridiculous.
of bullets. I can take, and it doesn't even have to be something crazy. Like, we had 5 Terminators with Thunder Shields going against a Stompa, and it was just like, oh, I guess I'm going to hold you here for 3 turns.
Well, yeah, but it also doesn't help that I'm an idiot and I didn't do my stomps. But it's called the Stompa, and I don't use stomps. I'm an idiot.
Oh,
But
that goes without saying.
So what we're saying is the power creep.
It's become real.
Yeah, and we've almost ruined our friendships with one another because of it, and it looks like they are toning it down a notch in 8th edition, and that's one thing we're all pretty excited about, and that's kind of the main reason we were prompted to sit down and start talking about our hobby.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say too before we go into it is we all hit a point where we were even debating like, hey, if we're going to play 40k, let's just only bring combined arms. Let's only bring a detachment that isn't a formation of formations or anything like that. And if we're going to bring a formation, try to only bring one.
We have to have
because we had to self-nerf ourselves to the point where our lists weren't just, oh, here's 3 formations that work perfectly together.
it would be that kind of moment when buddy calls you up and he's like, hey, this weekend you want to play a game? And you're like, yeah, I just got all my Tyranid stuff painted. I'm really excited. This is going to be fun. And you're like building up the entire week and you're like, oh, I'm going to get to play Warhammer this weekend. It's going to be so much fun. Get to play with my buddies. And you're like, okay, I'm going to do this really themey kind of horde list. It'll be It'll be fun. Or no. I'm bringing my Nidzilla list. I've been waiting to run this. I built my Dimakaron. I'm so jazzed. I don't care if it's not that good.
I know which match he's talking about.
And then you bring it out, and your buddy, he sets up his Wraith Knight.
Well, you see, I wanted to test out the new rules, and I had actually never used my Wraith Knight before, and this is an innocent enough mentality to because we didn't know what it could do.
So, no, I brought the Swarm Lord. That's what it was.
So it was this Swarm
It was like,
Lord,
you know what?
yeah.
This is going to be my 3,000 point list, and I'm going to bring something I never get to bring. And
that was a 2v1 game.
Yeah,
that was.
No. It was just me and Ian showed up.
No, Micah was there too.
No, I was there because he was running his Eldar. I was running my Dark Eldar, and you were running a giant Nidhogg.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
Against.
And so I have the Swarm Lord, and my entire army is devastated by this point. 3 turns in. I have the Swarm Lord still, and he has his bodyguards. And Ian has a boat full of Wraithguard with the D-Flamers, and he has the Wraith Knight. And I'm just sitting there thinking, or I say to him, hey dude, you want to we can just throw it out. We can just ham it out. Just power into each other, and just we can.
Let's do a combat.
Let's
do a combat.
Let's
see
do
what can
honorable
happen.
combat. This is like the best fighter in the entire book that I have. And Ian's like, okay, first I'm gonna set you on fire with the Wraith Guard. I haven't used these yet, and I'm just like, okay. So he does it, and the entire unit is gone.
5 flamers.
That's it. I had 3 Tyrant Guard with Lash Whips Bone Swords, and I had the Swarm Lord, and it was just gone.
Because the Wraith units are 180 points ish.
They're elites, yeah.
They're like 180 points. The Swarm Lord is no, it's not 300. It's like 200 something.
No,
Is the Swarm Lord a Lord of War?
No, he's
the Swarm
not.
Lord is not a Lord of War. Well, it's an old book. It's still an older book. They don't have the Lord of Wars.
So the point is, you get excited for this the entire week, and then you just get your shit pushed in by these new ridiculously overpowered units. And now GW's finally kind of doing something about it, which is really cool.
Just from some of the changes that they've been talking about.
I mean, even if there are some power imbalances, at least there's going to be, it's an honest imbalance where it's like, okay, everything has been reset back to ground zero.
Yeah, well, there's always been an imbalance just because of how tabletop gaming is. They don't update every single army simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's always been, we'll have an update here, we have an update here. So there's armies that get left behind, there's armies that get further ahead. That's just the nature of having a game that releases things individually.
Yeah. But we're getting that springboard where everything's...
Yeah. Well, but that's why I'm so excited for 8th edition, is they're finally saying, you know what, we got this game to the point it's at, we're going to take it all back down to the bare bones, we're going to start everybody over at the same spot, and that's exciting to me.
So we're just going to, basically what we want to do right now is we're just going to kind of talk about the new updates that GW's been kind of leaking, saying this is what's going to happen to the game, guys.
Also, I just want to say first off, it's a great marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Every day.
We all had a conversation last night about like, hey, 8th edition drops, hypothetically gun to your head, what army are you going to start? And all of us could name an army immediately.
I think
that we've been wanting to do, but we just haven't.
I think we've all been discussing the article of the day every day since they've been doing it.
Yeah.
More or less, yeah.
I think they really learned their lesson after End Times with fantasy. Just so many people just running around, lighting their armies on fire.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
As an act of
they
protest.
can't burn the Skaven army down to the ground again.
No, it was he had
The Dark Elves.
it was a beautiful Dark Elf army.
Oh, that's right.
Just lit it on fire.
That hurt my heart.
No, I think they're going about it the right way. It's just kind of like they're slowly peeling the Band-Aid off, as opposed to just ripping it in one
the
go.
approach that they're coming to it with is, we've listened to frequent complaints, and we're going to slowly address. It's not, we're updating the game. It's not, this isn't a new game. It's we are addressing the problems in the game, and that to me doesn't put the fear of God in people quite nearly as much as saying like, hey, we're deleting an old game and giving you a new one.
Everything
Yeah,
you know and loved is dead.
I'm really trying to remember when they were making the switch from Fantasy to Age of Sigmar. I don't think they released as much information about that as they have about 40K.
No, they didn't. That was
But
the
that's
thing.
what
They
I'm
didn't
saying.
release
It's like you
anything.
The end times
You
were...
didn't really know what was going to happen until Age of Sigmar launched, where how they're doing it with 40K from 7th to 8th, you're getting to see a lot of information before it actually drops. They're really kind of trying to introduce concepts to people slowly, instead of just one day being like, hey, everything you had worthless, this is now the new.
I feel like End Times was meant to be like a distraction. Like it was, yeah, it was meant to kind of push this new product under the radar, and no one's paying attention to leaks and spoilers for Age of Sigmar. It's what's going to happen in End Times, and they're being transparent about it right now.
Yeah, they're being very forward with their information. They might be a little, something might happen, but for the most part, they're actually doing a really good job about just showing you what they're planning, which is very nice.
So, listener at home, we'll stop teasing you right now, and we're just gonna dive right on into this. I got myself some notes here. We're gonna go through the turn phase basically, and everything that's kind of getting changed, and we'll give you our opinions. We should probably put a big little asterisk right here, just saying that this is just our opinion. We don't know what the hell we're talking about.
No, we do know what the hell we're talking about.
Okay.
We're the best players in the entire game.
We're the power creeps.
Yeah, no, don't listen to this guy. You should take everything I take as law.
Really, we're gonna give you a second, get a piece of paper and a pencil. You got to start writing down our opinions, because this is what's going to matter in your life moving forward.
So to begin with, it's probably one of the parts that I'm really excited about is there's new unit profiles.
Yes. So how Age of Sigmar has a sheet for each person, and how it has their skills and everything.
And they do the wheel and all
Mm-hmm.
that. One of the coolest parts that I'm really excited about is the no more weapon skill and ballistic skill value.
Yeah, I can't tell you how happy I am about that, because we've all been playing the hobby for a while, and when we look at weapon skill and ballistic skill, we're doing the -7 in our head, and we're doing we know what we're looking at. But I've been teaching a friend of mine recently, and it's probably the hardest thing that we're going over is just I need to actually have a sheet in front of him with it, because it's so much to remember. It's so much to look at a number and then think of another number and then think of a chart.
Yeah, you have to reference the chart and everything, and it's just a little ridiculous. That, and you would have moments where something like the biggest badass in like the entire Eldar army, the Avatar of Cain, hits on 3s. He's a weapon master. He should hit on anything but, no matter what.
That's just what he is.
Okay, weapon skill is actually one of the only things that I feel like I'm gonna miss. To me, from a lore perspective, or from if we're trying to portray realistic combat in a tabletop game, I feel like having a weapon skill that's meant to clash up against an opposing weapon skill, it's meant to simulate, you might be good, but there's always another contender in the ring, and having an unmodified role, I definitely see how it's a more convenient thing to teach people and to play it. There is no flow of gameplay that's being disrupted, but I feel like you're missing out on a lot of story elements. For instance, Karn the Betrayer is the biggest, baddest murderer in the entire galaxy. Only guy in the game that hits on a 2+. That, to me, it makes him a character worth taking. Avatar of Cain hitting on 3s. Yeah, he's a crazy golden god, but it's still crazy melee. It gives, not only, it's meant to show that you can still mess up with your own weapon, but on the flip side of that, if he's going up against, Marnius Calgar or something like that. Marnius Calgar can win through sheer luck alone. You have instances like that where, no matter how good you are subject to that. Now everybody's going to be hitting on 2s. I suspect that's because the wound counts are going up, and so they can't afford to have people missing.
I think yes, but if this is in fact going the way Age of Sigmar is going, and you guys saw my notes, you know exactly that's the way that it's going.
Yeah.
There's going to be a million special key rules on units and individual guys that'll be like, units attacking this guy, they get -1 to hit and stuff like that.
Exactly.
They will still modify it.
Cain is so good at what he does that anybody swinging at him is -1 to hit, and now you're immediately getting your I am so good with fighting in close quarters that anyone around me is now worse because of it.
My God,
so you do get stuff like that.
They had better do something like that.
I couldn't imagine that.
We've seen it in a lot of things in Sigmar, so I mean that's kind of hopefully goes in that direction.
Moving on, movement score.
Yeah.
That is the smarmiest face.
That hurt. I'm glad I don't have to look at what my character is and then look in another book to figure out how much I can move. It'll be nice seeing units that are infantry moving faster.
That's
Eldar
kinda-
moving faster than a Space Marine. That makes total sense. Harlequin's moving faster than Eldar.
That's
would even
what
be something you
gets
could see.
me excited about it. Like in the sense that I feel like we're missing out on those little characterful differences and getting rid of weapon skill. But we're gaining that in movement.
Yeah, imagine a Tyranid army that instead of all moving 6 inches, they're moving 7 or 8. That's a huge difference. That's a huge difference.
Or Hormagaunts actually being quick for once rather than
Yeah, exactly. Like you're really
nice.
telling me that Base Marine, no matter how good they are, just as fast as a Harlequin.
Yeah,
It's like no way.
No way. They just aren't.
it'll be.
Or no, if we want to be more, if we want a bigger power gap, guardsmen.
Yeah.
A guardsman moving 6 inches and a Harlequin moving 6 inches. I mean, that's a little weird, but by definition, they're both infantry, and therefore they move 6 inches.
Which is pretty cool.
So seeing individual scores for each unit is going to be really cool.
And in addition to the movement too, they're going to incorporate running now into the movement phase.
Yeah.
Which
Nice
is
little,
like Age of Sigmar.
Nice little housekeeping thing makes it move faster.
It's just like
Well,
one
and
less
you
thing
don't have to
worry about.
remember it, because
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've played a game where I move a unit, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to run that unit, but that's during the shooting phase, so I'll come back to that later, and then I forget about it.
Yeah, or it's just the idea of moving a unit and then having to move it again later it just makes it a little quicker. Which is nice.
It definitely is going to cut down on play time, which is going to be really nice, considering a game of 40K nowadays takes 6 hours, 7 hours.
At least for us. I can't say for everyone else, but
All right.
it takes us some time.
We like playing with and against horde armies, so that will always slow you down.
And we argue. Well, I argue.
Point.
Vehicles have wounds now.
With me, the only reason it's something that makes me uncomfortable is it's because I feel like what it's representing is the power creep in current edition 40K winning. I've always made the case that walkers are good and that vehicles with armor value aren't, garbage. And every time a new giant robot would come out with the toughness value, I would get a little angry about that, because I feel like that was GW accepting the power creep and playing into people's demands. No one's gonna buy this if it's armor value, and now that I recognize that it's something that's being done as for convenience, and I agree in the context of 8th edition, it's a good thing, but I still feel like I lost, and because of that, there's a little fire hatred in my soul.
Yeah, I've always had a really weird perspective, because I play Tau and I play Dark Eldar. And on my Tau end, I love all of my giant tough 8 ridiculous, but it happens to be a creature, but it's a machine sort of thing, where it should have been a walker. It should have been. But then I also have my Dark Eldar in, where I got a bunch of toughness 10 paper bags that I'm flying around in, or armor value 10 bags that I'm...
Toughness 10.
Toughness 10.
The toughest tanks in the galaxy.
The toughest Dark Eldar tanks in the galaxy. So, for me, like how Ian was saying, if I was ever playing my Dark Eldar and I was going against something with armor, I was terrified. Because it's just, I have to deal with this in such a specific way for my army. But now seeing toughness become relevant and how it might affect, my Dark Eldar being all poison-based weapons and stuff, it'll be interesting to see how they work that out in their new system.
If I'm just guessing, I'm gonna assume that anything with poison, like weapons that are intended to work as poison does in 7th edition, it'll probably have a little asterisk, oh, by the way, does not work on vehicles.
Yeah, if something has a vehicle keyword, because keywords are gonna end up being a thing, if they say, a vehicle, anything with the vehicle keyword is not affected by this weapon. I'm sure they'll keep it, or maybe only on 6s or something.
That's another thing worth mentioning. I feel like keywords and profiles in the data sheets are I think that's a lot more effective way of an effective way of making a model characterful and effective than the big endless list of keywords that are in the rulebook.
Yeah, just having it goes back to our first point, but just having everything on a sheet. You know, I don't have to go look through 3 different books to find it. I don't have to do anything like that. I really like playing my Blood Angels, and I really like playing, you know, the Flesh Tears and stuff like that's always been my faction. And to run that army, I need 4 books, where if everything switches to sheets, I can have, you know, however many units I'm bringing, that's the sheets that I have, and that's it. That it's right there, it's in front of me. I don't have to guess it or anything like that.
Bringing it back a little bit, I'm into it. I like vehicles having wounds. It's a bit of an abstract, yeah, but I mean, it's a game. It's just makes it easy. It's simple. It's just like, okay, this has this many points of damage that it can take. It's simpler. It's not nearly as like...
You're simpler.
Yeah, I know I am. I'm a simple boy. It's just, it makes it so much easier.
It's going to make the game go quicker, and we could see vehicles running around the field with 16 wounds.
I would expect that the rules are tested to a point where they'll be able to make tanks that are killable and tanks that are resilient.
Like the difference between a Rhino and a Land Raider, there's still going to be a difference. The Rhino will still be easier to kill than the Land Raider. It's just what you need to put into killing it is going to be different.
At least I freaking hope they playtest things.
Yeah, and from the sound of it, they have.
I hope they do.
No, they've talked with the people that run LVO and everything, and they've pretty much signed off on it as far as playtesting. And then one last little thing to touch on is there's nothing capped at 10 anymore. 10 is not the be-all, which is kind of neat.
What was the release for that? I think that was the only thing that we were talking about that I hadn't actually seen the release.
Was that when they talked about no D weapons?
It could have been. I didn't write it down on my notes.
I distinctly recall in the article about D weapons, one of the things that they mentioned.
No, it was in the Q&A.
The Q&A?
It was in the...
Was it during the Q? Okay.
Yeah, and they did the live Q&A, and they had said that.
The thing that I like about that is, I think part of the reason why D weapons were dragged into 7th edition is because they were working with a definite cap and they had a power creep going on. And so it's like, well, okay, this is the only other thing that we have to make this unit look distinct and special. So I guess there's D weapons in regular 40k now.
That changed the game. They really did, or at least for me. When we have a Tau player, we have an Eldar player, we have a Necron player, where getting D on the field wasn't hard. You could do it, and you could do it cheap.
Very cheap.
You had units running around the field that can just multiple D6 wound things, and just that was it.
You have to have, it's not, I want to play a game of 40k, it's what's my Wraith Knight plan? What's my Riptide plan?
What's my 3 Riptide plans?
Speaking of D weapons, a lot of the weapon profiles are changing.
Well, yes, they are.
Every weapon profile is changing, actually.
Which is fantastic. We talked about the Flamer a lot when it first kind of dropped, and I was in Team Pro Flamer for a little bit, but after discussing it with you, with Ian, I think that I kind of don't really care for the new Flamer. Now, one of the things they're doing is they're removing templates, which is great. I loved it.
I hated them. I would build lists specifically not bringing templates.
You just roll a die, and it's like, look, it says right there, this is what's happening.
The Flamer hit 6 times.
There is no debate.
Within range.
Yeah. The little ability that's just, it automatically hits, which is cool. It's still kind of keeping with the idea.
You're within range.
Yeah. On the las cannon, we still see the heavy.
Hold up. Why is it you don't like flamers?
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we can. I think that it takes away from being strategically placing yourself to take best advantage of it. Because if my dudes roll up within 8 inches and I just jump out and it's like, okay, D6, and it's like, oh, I rolled a 1 and okay.
The first time I ever tank shocked the squad into standing in a line, hopped out and set them on fire. Oh man, that was the best feeling in the world.
I didn't really think of it that way.
Oh yeah.
I guess that is kind of true.
I've yet to be able to do it, but I live for the day that I have a truck full of Burn Up Boys, and they come flying out from behind cover on top of a unit, and I place 1 flame template down, and it's like, okay, that's 10 boys with Burnas, that's 40 wounds.
The issue I take with the Flamer, and as a Chaos player, I will tell you, random D6s are garbage. The Flamer has always been a weapon that was reliable and consistent. Sure, your opponent can spread out, but there's ways to force them into place, and that's kind of the idea behind it. I could potentially roll up onto huge squad. No way they could feasibly spread them out wide enough and have them in cover. And I can roll up to them, start setting them on fire, and I can reliably expect wounds to occur. And I'm calling it now. I believe that it will occur to people, I can take this weapon and potentially land one hit on a mob. That's not good enough for me. People are going to start using heavy bolters more. They're going to start using higher volume of shots weapons. What I would do is I would do one of two things. I would either make it a flat 3 plus D3, that way you can guarantee at least 4 hits, or I would do, 6 wounds, but make it weaker, like strength 3, something like that, where it's,
Yeah, and we've seen that in Sigmar, not to bring it back to that again and again, but it's gonna happen just because how the changes are shaping out. There are units in Sigmar that it's a flat 6 hits, but it hits on 4s or 5s.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it makes it's like, hey, you're not, but maybe it wounds on a 3. Like, you could reliably wound, but you might not reliably hit. But the other thing is, too, which kind of interests me about the Flamer release, and maybe depending on how they write it, there's a lot of weapons in Sigmar that are like, you get as many hits as there are guys in a certain range.
I'm gonna
and to
swing
me,
my
that
sword
seems
around.
almost like how the Flamer should have been written. I mean, it hasn't been released, so we don't really know.
Yeah, it's
but
nothing's official
if you
yet.
pop out with a Flamer, and it's like, you get a hit for every enemy model within 8 inches, because now we're getting the reliable number of hits, and you still get to bring in the whole positioning aspect of it. Because then it makes sense again to spread your guys out. It makes sense again to dump a flamer out in a spot where you can spread your nice flamer around and be like, hey, there's 15 guys within 8 inches of me. That's 15 hits. You still get that dynamic without the template.
Yeah.
And we've seen that in Sigmar.
There's a number of ways.
There's a number of ways that they could make the flamer still worth bringing.
On the bolt gun is literally the same thing. There's nothing different on it.
Well, it can't punch through light infantry anymore.
Oh yeah, it's just a bullet at this point, a rapid firing gun that has decent strength. But the las cannon shows us 2 things, which I really am glad that they're doing from Age of Sigmar, and that's the damage characteristic. So one, if you cause a wound, it can do multiple damage. The las cannon does d6 damage, which is great, and then it has the rend from Age of Sigmar, which is just a negative.
Because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
When I came back into Warhammer 40k, I had the hardest time remembering how AP worked. It just didn't make sense to me for the longest time. Having to have low AP where in everything else I wanted high numbers, it
was a weird negative to how everything else worked, because you wanted the highest weapon skill, the highest ballistic skill, but the lowest AP.
Yeah, I think one thing that we'll see from it is it will make certain weapons more desirable again. Like heavy bolters suddenly aren't only something you'll take when you're going against hordes. You can reasonably, it's like, hey, Terminator, you're going off at a 4+ save now.
It is such a big deal being able to take a model with a 2-up save to a 4-up save. That's a big deal. You're going to start seeing models dropping like crazy against things.
You're not going to
friends.
have your crazy unkillable Lysanders and Drygos running around.
Exactly. You will not have this crazy unkillable death model that just will not go away. No. You will be able to bring in something with rend like a las cannon, and you're going to punch a hole in it.
Yeah, that kind of ties in with one of the things that I forget where I read it from, but the team basically said we want to make a 1,500 point game take about an hour and a half,
which is a beautiful concept.
It's a noble ambition.
Yeah, so that's what they're shooting for, and that as a tournament, like from a tournament standpoint, it's like, okay, you can have longer tournaments now because the games aren't that long anymore.
Yeah, a 2-day tournament could be twice the amount of games, 3 times the amount of games,
and then it just becomes an endurance race.
True. Yeah, true. A lot of standing.
Yeah, but for people like us that just want to hang out and just chuck dice for an afternoon with our buds, we could get a couple games in rather than just one, and then be mad at each other for the rest of the week.
Yeah, and then we meet back up on Saturday or Sunday. And we do it all over again.
Oh, let's be realistic. We meet up a month later with a grudge.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just to bring it back, rend is. I think it's a great idea. I think it works. I think it works very well.
If we're going to have models running around with, 10, 12 plus wounds, we're going to have to make it so their saves don't always work.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the best way to do that is rend. Because it doesn't matter how many wounds your model has if you are only making saves on a 6.
And on the flip side, suddenly your Terminators are capable of impressing you again. Because I feel like I feel like right now they either they either soak up everything and never die, or they get shot by plasma and they die instantly. Suddenly you have your Terminators running around and it's like, okay, all right, he's got to make a 4-up save, but when he does, he's going to be able to swing with his power fist fist. He's gonna swing for the fences, and it's, oh my god, he did it. I don't believe it. You get to have those little moments.
You get to have that like feeling in your gut of just like, oh my, I did it. Like I made this save and I'm getting in there.
It's like, I don't know about you guys, but Terminators are partly the reason why I started playing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Why
I mean,
you started? Oh, because of Terminators.
Like, have you
Yeah.
seen my Salamander army on the table? It's like 30 dudes in Cataphracti armor. I just love those guys.
And I know we didn't mention it, but 2 wound Terminators.
Oh boy.
2 wound Terminators.
It might not mean anything, but
Yeah, for all I know, it means nothing. But from what I've seen in Sigmar, anything with more than 1 wound is a big deal.
Yeah.
Cautious optimism.
I'm gonna lay down the hate on those guys to do anything.
To me, at least.
Yeah.
See, anything that's more than 1 wound, I mean, that's serious consideration there.
So if you've made it this far, we're gonna stop talking about unit profiles and we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of the game itself now. Opening it up here, we got the new movement phase. We touched on that a little bit with the new movement characteristic, which is king shit. Pretty excited
Running
about
is
that.
now in the movement phase,
Which is
So
great.
that's an additional.
And they're now incorporating the fallback movement, which is interesting.
Yeah, fallback is weird to me. I like the concept of it. It makes sense that a unit just says, you know what, fuck it, we're getting out of here.
I think you're gonna be making a lot of use with it as a Tau player.
Yeah. Oh my god, as a Tau player. Yeah. Do I want to swing with my guy that's probably, let's just be honest, hitting on a 6, wounding on a 6. Let's just be honest here. But hey, now I have the option of, instead of like just writing off that unit, like, oh, they're dead. If I survive it and I can fall back and I can start shooting again, that's huge. That's gonna be.
It's like, why would you stay?
Yeah, like why would I just willingly sit there for 2 turns as a unit of blood claws literally rips my ankle open?
These demons just came out of a portal and they've got bigger swords than I do. I got a dang. Well, there's only one guy brought a knife,
and it's technically ceremonial, so we can't use it.
We're just gonna tough this out. Okay.
This bread is very honorable. Will you never cut him if you are fresh?
Play my Tau again.
I mean, honestly, I think a lot of Tau lists are going to turn into like Civil War era war games, where it's
would be
just
fun.
nothing but gun lines of pulse rifles.
Would be
so
fun.
cool.
But yeah, basically, if you get a unit that gets charged and they survive the combat the next turn, you can choose to disengage, which is really cool, and then that opens up the rest of your entire army to shoot these guys that thought they
Yeah,
could run
the
over.
idea of locking a unit in close combat as your way of surviving, which is a very big Harlequin technique, is you want to be in combat and you want to kill all of their models down to 1 dude and stay there.
It'll be interesting. It'll add for a little bit more of kind of like baiting people and
I think
stuff
the
like
game
that.
is going to
Yeah.
start to. I think the game's going to start to explode, like on turn 2, turn 3. Like
Well, and
that's
imagine-
why it's going to be an hour and a half.
And imagine too, just off the top of my head, you got like a guard list. You got a guard list of what, a blob of 30 guys,
Oh, yeah,
40
yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
You're probably not gonna cut them all down. There's a solid chance you're probably not gonna cut them all down, which means they're gonna back up and they're gonna shoot you in the face. That's just how it's gonna be, and that's gonna be a very interesting concept to see falling back being a viable option.
Well, granted, if you run away, you can't advance, you can't shoot, you can't do anything. You gotta hang out for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just another layer of strategy that you can bring to the table.
And then after the movement phase, we got the psychic phase.
Yeah, psychic powers.
And guess what? It's just Age of Sigmar's magic system.
So I played Tau, and my psychic phase was really quick. And I played Dark Eldar, and my psychic phase was really quick. And then I kind of played Blood Angels. I really liked my librarian. That was just it. I had a librarian.
You do
I
a
had
couple
dude.
things, not really.
Yeah, I could, and I really like direct damage spells, or casting, however you want to call it. Those were always fun to me, but I saw people running around with jet bikes with invisibility and
Ever
just,
since I started playing Eldar, it's like, okay, I love blessings.
blessings
so
are
much.
great, maledictions are they're fun, they're kooky how they work. Then I switched over to Sylvaneth, who are the big casters of AOS right now, I think it's fair to say, and it's just, oh boy, here's my Gnarl route, and everyone's casting, and it's all fun and dandy. But with 40k, you get a lot of dice, and then you have one caster doing everything.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
You get a lot of dice, and you have one caster doing all of your casting. Where how it works in Age of Sigmar is each caster has a certain amount of spells that they can cast.
Yep.
And you roll 2d6, and it has a casting value, and that's what it is.
You either cast it or you don't, and then you move on.
That's it.
As an Eldar player, I was never ever afraid of anything in the psychic phase.
Why should you be?
I'm not going to perils. I'm not going to do it. But on the flip side, my opponent who brought his lone psyker might get his power off, but I have,
You're shutting it down.
I have 7 dice that I can chuck at it, and it's like, okay, well, your character that you brought doesn't get to do anything.
Oh boy, my librarian's just sitting in the corner again.
And no more just sitting around. Now that unbinding is going to be a thing. It's like, oh, you have a wizard? Okay, you get 2d6 2. Roll them. If you beat their roll for their spell, you unbind it.
And that's it. No more rolling 6s.
That's deny the witch. You don't have to. I don't need to roll like 10 6s because
To defend themselves.
Which is great. And it makes sense, too, because...
Potential to defend themselves.
Which is great. And it makes sense, too, because just the ability to ruin your opponent's plan just because you got lucky seems kind of dickish, but on the table, it just makes more sense. I honestly don't remember ever unbinding.
And then also, when they were talking about that, they also mentioned that Mortal Wounds is going to be coming to 8th edition. And
yeah.
I really like Mortal Wounds. It's easy. You just don't get saves. You take the damage.
I think it's another thing where you're going to have models running around with higher wound counts. There needs to be an effective means to causing wounds that can't be saved against, because that's the only way the game's going to come to an end.
And it's just like, listen, I'm shooting mind bullets at you. Your shield isn't going to stop my fucking mind bullets.
Well, no, one of my underlings looked out, sir, and he jumped in the way.
No!
He jumped in the way of that psychic energy that was coming towards me.
He saw my Farseer staring at him, and it's like, I don't like the way that guy's staring at you, boss.
Oh, my brain feels all funny.
Sir, no!
Oh god, it's like long-range microwaving someone.
Yeah,
all
that's what it
hilarious.
was. So that'll be fun. So going into this next one, I got a scenario for you.
All right.
Okay, Ian.
What do you got for me?
There's a burglar.
I'll just sit over here.
Okay. Well, I mean, you can be the burglar.
No. It's
Okay.
fine.
Okay. So Ian, there's this burglar. He's in your house,
Okay.
right?
All right.
You wake up in the middle of the night. You hear him crashing around, right?
Okay.
He's making all sorts of noise trying to find your valuables.
All right.
You got like holes in the wall or something. You got like he's doing the thumps trying to find it.
Is my waifu body pillow safe?
Yeah, she's okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's my first concern.
Okay. Good. You pull out the gun from your bedside table, right?
Yeah.
You don't have a rifle.
Just-
Because you don't put that in a bedside table. It's crazy.
Yeah,
You
crazy.
got what do you got?
I got my sawed-off shotty.
No, you have a handgun.
Oh,
In
all
this
right. Well,
scenario.
Ruining
all
it.
right.
You're ruining
Okay.
it.
Sorry.
So
I got a handgun.
he comes in the Robert, right?
Yeah.
He comes in.
Robert.
Robert comes in.
Robert the Robert.
Robert the Robert.
Robert the Robert
He
comes in.
comes in, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna hit you with my lead pipe," and you point your gun at him, and all of a sudden it doesn't fire
Oh.
because you're in close combat now.
Oh, God damn
You
it.
can't. How many times has that happened to you?
This is why you bring lead pipes to your breaking
and
entrances.
he hits you over the head with his pipe.
Well, I can club him with my my gun. Is
No.
no, because I have 2 guns, which means I can get that extra attack with it, but I can't shoot them.
You're
Yeah, you
ruining
can't
this.
shoot. Okay. Point of the matter is you can't shoot him. But guess what? With these new 8th edition rules, you can.
All right. And I miss when having a pistol meant something other than just
You get
can-
that extra attack.
When you can double tap with your pistol, it was like, okay, there's an added element, element to close combat now. Do I want to charge them? Do I want to double tap my pistols? Sometimes it's more viable to just stand back, double tap, and then get assaulted. When I played Space Wolves, that's what you did. You double tap your pistols, you have counterattack, you let them charge you, you get all your attacks in.
So basically now you can shoot pistols in close combat, which is like, why couldn't we have done this to begin with? I get not being able to like walk up to somebody and blast them in
Bring
the face
that
with a
last
bolter.
cannon to bear.
Yeah,
bring
but-
that missile launcher to bear.
But a pistol, like, that's great because every Space Marine has a bull pistol.
Well, and by definition, it's a pistol.
Yeah,
you
it's-
can shoot it at somebody an inch away from you.
That's what it's meant for.
That's what you can do. You just put it against
Well, maybe
them
not
and
meant
pull
for
the trigger.
But so that's an option, which is great because that'll make combats go quicker, which will make assault units even more deadly. So as a Space Marine player, one of the main things that was so cool about Tactical Marines is that you could include a heavy weapon in the squad. But why would you ever? Because your Tactical Marines are moving around all the time, unless you're going to combat squad. But then you have a 5-man like.
Oh, cool! That's I'm gonna eat that kill point right now.
Yeah, seriously.
You got four dudes with bolters and a missile in a building.
Yeah, it's like, no, that's not what I wanted at all. I don't want extra wounds for a fucking bolter. Whatever. But now, heavy weapons just take a -1 to hit if they're moving. And, you're hitting on 3s anyway because you're a goddamn Space Marine.
I think this is going to be the age of heavy bolters. I'm feeling it. Like
I think that's
it's
safe
gonna be
to say.
so good.
The fact that I can run Melt-A-Bunker Salamanders and not be like, why did I do this? and just get excited about having a giant melty gun as I'm running around just zapping everything.
Oh, is it a point? I always thought it was like a.
What,
Like, I imagine it was like
gun?
yeah.
I always imagined it was shooting lava.
Yeah, see, that's what. So
I
it's
don't
kind of like
shoot-
a-
shooting
They don't
like lava.
shoot goo if I'm mistaken, unless I'm mistaken. I believe it's like heat waves.
Oh, it's like a big hairdryer.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that be more like a las cannon? Or
No,
like,
las cannon makes
a beam.
Well, but that's a beam, but it's like the same kind of
No,
concept.
I'm talking waves.
Yeah,
It's like a heat
It
wave.
makes it's like a Gundam noise.
Oh, okay.
Wave.
And then the Volkite, I imagine, was just like, or maybe like a pew, you know, like a like an '80s ray gun kind of,
Oh, like the old school sci-fi sound.
80s Ronald Reagan.
something like that.
Oh, there you
yeah.
go.
Ronald
Yeah.
Reagan was shooting Volkites.
Yeah,
that's what
he was running the heresy.
Yeah.
Was he loyalist? We don't need to say this.
Wait, Reagan?
Yeah.
No, he wasn't loyalist.
He was loyalist.
think
He was a
so?
traitor.
I
Traitor Primarch.
think he was traitor Primarch.
for real.
No. God, no.
Oh yeah,
it was
no.
Reagan.
Oh dude, he totally worshipped Nurgle.
Oh,
God damn it.
The Gipper.
Cover just adds to your armor save now. No more of this bullshit. Million 2+ rerollable janks and
Dip your toesies into cover.
No, yeah, none of
Dip
that.
your toesies into cover.
It's just a flat +1 to your armor save, which is actually I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's no more.
I think it's something that's for the sake of speeding the game along.
Well, and think of it too, you still have like the rule of one. I'm sure will still be in the game, which means you have your Terminator squad with a 2-up save. Now they're in cover. They still have a 2-up save. That's what they're getting. And say you have something that is like a negative rend. Say it's a -2 rend. You're going from a 2-up to a 4-up, but you're in cover.
So you
now
got
it's a 3-up. So it will play into the game still. It will still factor in.
Yeah, and that'll be really cool. I'm just excited to see no more of this. I'm a space marine standing in a building. This building gives me a 4-up cover, but why would I ever take that? So I'm gonna go stand in the window and get shot in the face because my armor's better.
Yeah, I have a 3-up save. Why would I bother?
Stupid.
Yeah.
It's like they're tactically sound. They're gonna take advantage of cover when it's there.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can shoot people through walls.
Yep.
You can your laser beam, your high-powered laser beam is, it's like terrain. I don't care. Concrete? No, this is a goddamn laser
If it can
beam.
shoot through the plate of a Land Raider, I'm pretty sure it can shoot through some shitty Hive World wall.
The trees aren't going to protect you from a god-killing laser.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
So that'll be fun. I'm excited.
It'll speed everything up.
It'll just make it, especially I know we've all had that debate of, okay, does this building give 5-up or 4-up?
Mm-hmm.
And 4-up cover was huge.
You have to sit there.
You're that
and
orc
argue
player,
about
you're
it.
that orc player who's getting screened by a building, and you're like, well, it's 4-up cover. Why'd I pay for all this armor? Why did I pay for a 5-up save?
Yeah, charging got a bit of an improvement. I don't know, a personal opinion. I don't know if it's good enough to make it
I'm not
too relevant.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm actually not entirely certain I know how to call this one.
Do you wanna say it for anybody that has?
Yeah, I'll read it real quick. So, if you charge and you're within 1 inch of an enemy, you're engaged, which is kind of cool. Units can overwatch unlimited times. So if I charge it, I'm gonna get shot to shit. But I didn't complete the charge, so whatever. I'm gonna charge with another unit. That unit that I'm charging can overwatch again. And just keeps happening until it's engaged. Yeah, you milk that giant fish wiener of yours, goddammit.
Oh, my Tau.
It's interesting, but on the other hand, they're going to bring in the same sort of pile-in rules that AOS has, where I can pile in to another unit if I'm in combat with one unit, so I can drag it into other neighboring units.
Kind of like how multi-assaulting works,
Yeah,
but
disorganized charges.
How
Yeah.
the disorganized charge work. But the problem with the disorganized charge is all of the power and strategy is behind the person charging. So say you're person and you're charging and you decide to engage 2 separate units. Well, now the person being charged also has the option of pulling in a unit within 3 inches. So now that person that built a gun line that has 2 separate units right next to each other, they can bring in their other unit to help fight if they need to.
That's what I'm saying. That there's so many variables in close combat now. It's like I'm having trouble telling if this is a good thing or a bad thing.
I don't know if
I
it's a
think-
step forward. I think it's more of a step to the side.
Yeah.
But there's too many factors
It's
kind of that we
different.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different.
I'm willing to withhold judgment until
I will
we
say-
get into assault.
I will say that being 1 inch away, not being in base contact, brings up the notion that melee weapons will have a range, same
Yeah.
as Sigmar.
Yeah.
You know, you have a power sword and it has a 1-inch reach.
Oh man,
But you got some demon. You got some demon, and his swords. You know, he's got a big fleshy 2-inch sword.
you might actually see Space Marines running around with power spears now.
Yeah, exactly. Power spears might become usable again because maybe a power spear's got a 2-3-inch
Usable
range.
again? I don't think I've never seen a power spear used before.
I've played with the notion of using them in Blood Angels just because Furious Charge plus 1 on the charge, stuff like that. You can start getting some strength. But anyways, I think also the idea of being able to pile in a unit next to another unit is going to make whoever's charging have to think about it a lot more. If they make this charge, they don't just move everyone into base contact. They might try to wrap around another end to avoid pulling in some kill mob. I could keep a unit of Incubi inside of a unit of Cabalite. My Cabalite just got charged. My Incubi are within 3 inches. Now you just pulled my Incubi into combat. I can do things like that as a way to protect a gun line by having another killy unit next to it bubble wrapped.
Whereas if I'm trying to set up something super hard on the right flank, I can tie up one unit on the left flank and then have that unit spread out into another neighboring unit. So now they're engaged.
Great.
Yeah, it'll be really
Hordes
cool.
in general, I feel like are getting a facelift. You can have your
Are
orcs.
going to be more playable.
Your previously initiative 2 orcs might actually get to attack first this time.
Oh, well, actually, now that you bring that up, we're gonna segue into this next little part, and that's talking about combat. And chargers go first automatically.
Yep.
Because I'm running into you, you fuck. Of course, I'm gonna hit you before you can react to it, which is really cool. Can you imagine a power fist getting to punch somebody in the face before they even get to react?
No more factoring in the whole dynamic of who do I give the power fist to? Do I give it to my captain because I know my captain's gonna get challenged out and hit first? No more having these crazy initiative 8 Eldar that it doesn't matter if they get charged because they're going to kill you anyways. They're going to go before you.
Well, I've always felt that with the really higher initiative models, the instances where it really mattered were very few and far between. For the most part, it's like I'm going ahead of literally everything in the game except if I'm going against this entire army, in which case it doesn't do me any good.
Exactly. Like if you're a Space Marine player going against Orcs, you were always going first, but now you're going against Eldar, now you're not. So it was only very specific armies that you were going against that ever became a factor.
I found that the only times where it was never a for sure thing, where like I had to be specific about the fights that I picked in order to make sure that I went first, would be when our Eldar would clash. When my Eldar would play against your Dark Eldar, it's like, okay, yeah, my Aspect Warriors are going slow, but my Exarch, my Dire Avenger Exarch's going Simo with his squad leader.
Exactly.
So that's the only time I would ever have to really think about it.
Yeah, Eldar Dark Eldar was always a very interesting fight in close combat because we were both tough 3.
Both tough 3, strength 3.
We were both strength 3, so we were wounding each other on 4s across the board, and it was just like, all right, we're going before them. That was a big deal. That was
huge.
A big deal being able to go before a similar model.
And so it's this luxury I'm never used to having. It's like, oh man, I wound on something other than 5s. Oh my god. So heck yeah, sure, I might assault you with my Guardians.
Yeah.
I might assault you with my...
I'll dust my witches off and I'll actually put them on the table for again. Like, I'll actually do it.
So that's what I'm thinking you're going to see with 8th edition units that traditionally never ended up in combat. Suddenly it's like, well, it might be advantageous to do this right now.
This rule rewards combat. It's like, okay, you braved running across the entire battlefield to just get into combat with that guy.
8 in Overwatch, or 3.
Or 10.
Depending on what army you're playing against.
You're gonna get your attacks now.
Go for it.
You've earned
You
it.
swing for the fences.
So that'll
and you got to
be-
imagine too, if they're planning on running into combat, they're probably sword in hand, getting ready to swing.
Yeah.
They're not gonna walk into combat and be like, "Cool, now I'm in combat. I'm
Yeah.
gonna draw my weapon."
Let's
It's
have an
like-
arm wrestling contest, and then everyone's just kind of like, just doing that. It might seem like now, after that, then once the charge is done, everyone's just going Simo, right? No. It's going to bring in Age of Sigmar's activation roll. And I like that, which is nice, because now you're deciding which combat means the most to you. And if you give an opponent 1, you might be setting yourself up for a better activation that you can see that they don't.
That's going to factor a lot in for armies who only want to be in combat. You got your Khorne Bloodbound and stuff like that, who might not have a lot of shooting. They want to be in combat the whole time. they're gonna have to really think about what unit goes first. Do I want my, bloodthirster, whatever, to get into combat and leave a bunch of demons out on the edge? And they only got a 5-6 up save. Maybe they won't survive the combat. So it really brings in factoring in who goes when.
It's really cool. It's going to bring a little bit more well, not even complexity. It'll speed it up. It'll bring a little bit more of a new dynamic to the combat.
Yeah, I don't think it'll make it take longer. I think it'll just, it's more strategic in what you choose.
I think that's where the bulk of the decision making is going to take place. Like I said, I feel like the game's really going, like Age of Sigmar, it's really going to explode on turn 2, turn 3. So less of the
Which
game.
I love. I set up my army, we position against each other, and then turn 2, 3 is just a bloodbath.
Yeah, and the way you activate is going to guarantee exactly how you're going to fight, because there are weapons out there that will affect who's going to go first. For instance, the Tyranids have their lash whips, and GW has said that will affect combat in some way. They haven't quite said
That's
how.
your silver potion or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, I've decided I'm going to go first.
Yeah, it could be that. So that'll be really interesting. It makes some weapons that are just kind of like, that'll make them a little more interesting. Like maybe Hydra Gauntlets for the Dark Eldar will do something.
I hope what it does
maybe.
is it makes Slanesh only armies desirable.
Yeah.
That would be cool to see.
Yeah.
I would really like to see like a Slanesh only army come back.
And to the very last phase. After all the wounds have been dealt, all the combats are completed, everyone's lying face down in the dirt dead, you gotta do your morale tests. And the morale system they're going with is just the battle shock system.
Battle sock.
Battle sock. You gotta put on your battle socks.
I haven't had a battle sock since I was in like middle school.
Wait, for real?
Well,
Ian and
yeah.
I play battle socks like every other night.
That's not what he's
That's
talking
not
about.
what I was talking
That's
about.
not what he's talking about.
I did battle with a sock a lot in middle school.
Yeah,
Oh.
Yeah.
some vigorous close combat.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
It usually won.
Was it that flaccid?
It usually won. Don't worry about it. What were we talking about?
So, Battle Shock.
Battle Shock.
The way the system works right now is you have your bravery test, which is leadership, and you roll a d6, and you add the number of dudes that died on your side to that die. And based on how many points over your leadership you are, you lose that many more models. Not wounds, models. It's so easy.
It's just, I lost 3 guys. I rolled a 3. My bravery is 5. I lose 1 more model.
And then
That's
you keep duking it out.
It's another
That's
mechanic that's
it.
there for the sake of keeping the flow of gameplay going.
Yeah.
It's simple. You just have to be able to add 2 numbers together and look at a sheet.
And, in AOS, there's dudes that manipulate battle shock values and everything. They increase them, they lower them, and it's absolutely going to happen.
I've never once felt like it's I've never once felt like it's a limiting mechanic to where you can't have brave dudes. You can't have dudes that aren't brave at all.
And it's really good at sort of governing itself. So if you're running really specialized elite dudes and that have like a million wounds, like my Iron Jaws, I like to run brutes. If I lose a battle shock test, I'm going to lose whole brutes.
And it's 2-3 wound models that
Yeah,
you run
and
away.
it's-
It's not just somebody takes a wound. You lose a model. That's a big deal.
So you need to be smart on the combats that you're choosing.
And I will say too, it's also going to bring in a big factor too, like you said, with modifying leadership or bravery at this point.
Yep.
Where there was always lists I wanted to run with Dark Eldar, where I had like the Armor of Misery, gave a -1 to leadership. You would have Grizzly Trophies, was a -1 to leadership. You had Harlequins had a mask, I can't remember off the top of my head, that was a negative to leadership. So you could get 2 or 3 guys together, get a unit's leadership down by 3, and then psychic scream them or something like that.
Yeah,
There were a lot of
actually-
mechanics.
There were a lot of mechanics that you could do things like that. You had the Phantasm launchers you could put on a Raider that you would never put on because they were
Another
basically
thing that's
worthless.
worth talking about, I feel like a lot of the mechanics that revolve around leadership, getting someone to fail a leadership test,
It was hard.
it was hard. It's so much so that they're releasing formations where it's imposing leadership tests on people that are taken on 3 dice. Imposing leadership tests on people that are taken on 3 dice. Why is suddenly getting shot at scarier than, I don't know, a psychic elf probing my mind and filling it with visions of terror? How on earth is,
The grizzled, trained soldier fearing a bullet more than God.
it doesn't make sense, but with the scale reduced, I feel like with 1 die roll, It's going to be easier to buff, it's going to be easier to debuff, and you're going to start seeing battle tests or battle shock tests that matter.
Which just leads into the whole, these games are going to be faster. Casualties are going to be insane, and it's just going to go quicker.
Yeah, and I think from everything released, the signs really heavily point towards this game will go faster than a game has ever gone before outside of getting tabled turn 1 by some Tau dick.
Yeah.
If this takes off too, I think it'll be better for the stores. You can get away with having just 2 tables in your store, and little Timmy can learn a game, and then the real players, the big boys, can come in and duke it out afterwards.
Oh yeah, playing on a 4x4.
Yeah.
That's
Playing on a
fun.
4x4 is great. Like, it's weird to think about losing that extra 2 feet, but it makes the games go quicker.
You're not going to hide.
You can only maneuver so much. You can only go so many places.
And then I only have one last thing on the notes.
I have a question, actually.
Oh.
If you wanted to do
Well,
it.
let's let Eric wrap, and then
yeah.
we'll open it up. How's that?
And remember to raise your hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
He kind of is.
No, he's
Well, I'm
got-
the
He's just itching his
touching
beard.
his. Yeah, that's it. The last thing that I have to touch on is they just released about 2 days ago the stuff on the new formations. It's a lot of speculation because we still have no idea what command points are, because based on these formations, how you set them up, you get command benefits and points. So maybe they say they're going to do really cool things. I think it'll
The
kind
thing
of...
that comes to mind for me are the strategic assets in Apocalypse.
I was thinking that, or battle doctrines that like Ultramarines
Yeah.
have, that you can activate once a turn.
Yeah, or Age of Sigmar has if you're underpointed. If
The triumph
you have
table.
less points than your
Yeah.
opponent, you can roll on a triumph table.
It's a lot of speculation, but
Yeah.
the main thing that I saw about this was they are universal.
Everybody has access to the same things.
It's
Yes.
these formations. They are you take a 1 HQ, you take 3 troops, you take a this and a this. You get these benefits for anybody, and it says in it you need to be under keyword same for the whole army.
You need, and just that makes me almost want to cry.
Which
'Cause
is-
formations have just, they started out really interesting and kooky.
It turned
and
the
then
game
it
into
just-
a card game.
It just became, what formations are you bringing? These are the formations I'm bringing.
Yeah.
There was no more creativity in building a list outside of staying in combined arms or, a specific detachment.
I dislike the idea that an army can't stand on its own merits. It has to have a boatload of special rules from the rulebook in order to be unique.
Yeah, or they would give it to a unit that didn't need it. Riptides are good. Riptides by themselves are good. But if you have 3 of them, oh, by the way, their 1 negative is gone. They don't have that
Micah, I don't
negative
think you
anymore.
understand. I need the extra buff when I'm taking 3 Khorne Lords of Skulls. I need it. I just need it. They're underpowered.
Yeah, it's just you had 2 different types of formations, and I could be oversimplifying, but you had formations that were way too fucking good. Why would you ever pass this up? This is amazing.
Like
And then
Skyhammer.
Like
Yeah.
Skyhammer, like the Riptide formation.
Fuck Skyhammer.
Yeah, Skyhammer died. So, and then the other formations were worthless. Tyrannid had a couple, Orcs had a couple, worthless.
If you
Blood
wanna-
Angels had a bunch, worthless.
You want to
Like,
play Tyrannid? You're using Leviathan Hive Fleet formation, so you can run your 3 flyers, and then maybe you're gonna take the one that gives you the Biovores and Exocrine that gets a reroll.
Yeah,
Another-
it's just
That's it.
Another
was
gripe
more
I had with them is like, okay, we can just release formations as a substitute for updating a codex.
yeah. Now you have codexes that you need to run in formation just because they won't update the codex.
That's not to say that I don't think that there will be faction-specific ones, because look at Age of Sigmar, there's a million of them.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
this is shaping up to be a bit of a different beast. Like, one of the main things, they're doing the 3 modes to play, right?
Yeah.
So you have the one where it's like, no points, do whatever the fuck you want. You dictate it. And they're doing another one where it's just like, there's some points. So there's an overarching total for dudes, like in Age of Sigmar. And then there's matched play for 40k, which is all points, which is 40k as we know and love it.
How we're
pointed out.
probably
Which
going to
is-
play it.
More than likely.
Which is really cool for like Sigmar is like, I want to run a unit and I want them to have all of the special weapons available to them.
Yeah.
You can give it to them. You
Yeah.
can do it that way. Where in 40k, that doesn't make the most sense in the world because those weapons really do influence how the battle goes.
Exactly.
So if you want to play a very fluffy story game, you can play the version where your squad upgrades and stuff like that don't cost anything.
These are my special salamanders. Each and every one of them has a melta-gun, and they've trained to use these since their inception.
Or like Vanguard.
Yeah.
Or like Vanguard for Space Marines. Like if I want to run a bunch of them with just, they all have lightning claws. Just because that's
your army's
works
fluff.
for me.
Yeah.
That's how I want to run them.
Well, you can do it now with the overarching points. If we decide we want to have a bit more of a narrative game, but we want to keep it kind of reeled in a little bit, we can do that. Or if we want to play just straight up points like how we always play, we can do that.
And I think just giving the option is very nice. And I will say that kind of rolls back a little bit on the formations or how they are in Sigmar battalions and stuff like that. I just pray to God they cost points.
Oh, they absolutely will.
I pray to God they cost points because if I'm running Gnarl Root and I have to take a household and Gnarl Root, it costs 100 points to do that. 100 points, that's another Branch Wraith, that's another unit of Tree Revenants. That is a decision that I have to make, especially at lower point games, where in 40k, you could just take 8 formations, it didn't matter. They didn't cost points, you got just free shit. And that, to me, 40k in
That was
general,
a blatant and transparent marketing technique.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
For me, I don't want to say ruin 40k because I still like 7th, I still would play 7th, but to me, what just made me have just the most bitter taste in my mouth, you just got 3 things. It just drove me insane seeing some Ultramarine player have 600 points worth of vehicles for free.
Razorbacks aren't selling. What can we do?
This is it. It's all upgraded and everything. And then the battle mana pool for Admech.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, you take all these units, you get all your upgrades for free. Go have fun.
Anything that could give you a 600 point advantage on your opponent is ridiculous. And that to
It
me
literally
just,
becomes pay to win at that point. The only reason I didn't bring 1,000 points of free Razorbacks is because I couldn't afford it.
That wraps up everything that I got, guys.
All right, I got a question
Ian,
for you, Eric.
you had a question?
Eric, I have a question for you.
What's up?
So, they mentioned the potential for generic formations and that sort of thing.
Yes.
We were discussing armies that we would play, and you flat out said, if there's no special representation for salamanders, I will be disinterested in playing them.
I would.
My question for you is, what do you have against Vanilla Marines, dude? Let me give you some background here.
You're gonna chalk me up like the fucking devil.
I am. Well, no one is in fact the devil more than I am. I play Word Bearers, and I've been playing Chaos Undivided for some time now. And something that really gets under my skin is the mentality of the Space Marine players. Not because of the whole heresy thing, but there's usually this insistence where I need to have special shit for my guys to be who I think they are. Whereas I've been perfectly content with nothing. I've been content with just leadership upgrades and things like that. That's more than enough to accomplish what you need to accomplish in a game. I personally believe that Space Wolves are the worst defenders. Coming from a Salamander player, it's like, what's wrong with being a Space Marine? Isn't being a Salamander, the knowledge that your color scheme, that you're representing your chapter, isn't that enough to keep you happy?
It's fine, but I mean, I like being salamanders. I like being slow. I like having access to good flamers and great melta-guns, and I like all the flavor that goes along with that, and I like having rules that reflect that.
So, okay. So I understand thematically preferring a certain play style, but why not use an existing body of generic rules to craft that? Why does it have to be represented by special rules? I mean, isn't that, in my opinion, is a part of why the power creep began to happen. He started seeing, blue. These are my original character dudes in their special gold and black armor, and they really think Jakati Khan's a cool guy, and they're using the White Scar chapter tactics. Because they're the hottest shit in town right now. I feel like that contributed to the problem.
I agree, but I think that having chapter that also comes from the formations, not so much their chapter tactics. Wait, that was a big.
So you're saying people were never running. So these are my salamanders. These are back when salamanders were objectively the best.
I think
on the merits of their own chapter tactics.
The merits of their own chapter tactics, they were okay. What made them great was Vulcan, because Vulcan was the one that made all of their meltas so good.
Okay.
And that was the benefits of that.
But them being salamanders was just our flamers are good and we're slow.
What I'm saying though is if you start, the more differences that you put into it, a hierarchy is inevitable. It has to occur. You will get people that very quickly figure out, okay, Ultramarines are the best in this case because of their special rules. I just feel like that's going to lead into the same shit, and if they're using their heads, I'm not assuming they're going to. I'm assuming you're going to get what you want. I'm saying suppose they did just keep a generic list that everybody pulls from. I feel like that would be a better thing in all honesty.
If we're talking about pure balance, everyone having access to the same thing is the most balanced.
Precisely. And the differences shine from army to army rather than sub-factions within the army.
I feel like Space Marines can have minor differences that do not make them overpowered. I feel like the overpowering, like Erik said, came from the access to what formations they had. That being said, for a Blood Angel in the new rule set, it could just be as simple as my guys get +1 to hit on the charge. To me as a player is enough flavoring to me to build an army around that concept.
That's all I can hope for.
If you are a Salamander player, like Erik is, and you bring a Flamer with your squad, maybe it wounds better. And that's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it needs to be.
As long as the differences are minute enough.
Yeah,
as
and
long as
that's
they're minor and they're fluffy, I have zero issues with it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I want my salamanders to be king shit like they were back in 5th and 6th. I want them to be able to do what they've been known to do and what they are known to be good at. I don't want it to just be like, these are my generic Space Marines that are painted green and they have melta guns.
Everyone's gonna have their own sheets now. Infantry is not all 6 inches. So for example, if a Space Marine can move 6 inches, a Salamander Tactical Marine will only move 5.
That is precisely why I feel like it's not going to be, as much as I would like to see it, it's not going to be just a big list of generics. It's very, very easy to tailor a profile towards, these are Blood Angel, like you said.
I have my doubts as far as it going that far. Realistically, what I think is going to end up happening is it's going to be like the new Stormcast book. They have their different war enclaves, so there's like the Hammers of Sigmar, the Knights of the Helden Hammer, Anvils of Sigmar, those guys, and each one has its own specific formation that's really broad. And based on that, you get some rules, and then you have to pay a certain amount of points to take it, and then you have a list of units you can basically pull from. And I think that's more of what's going to end up happening. Sometimes all the time they get benefits, sometimes they get negatives, but sometimes the negative is just reflected in the amount of points that you have to spend in order to take that formation.
Yeah, and not to bring another concept in, but how 30k does their Legion rules and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's great.
There are positives and there are negatives to being like this, and I think that's how it should be.
I think a bulk of how 30k accomplishes what they do, though, is they have chapter-specific units. It's not It's granted, there are chapter-specific rules, but they go through a great deal of effort to make sure that there are actual models that embody the soul of the Legion.
Think of all the new models that have come out for Sigmar since its release.
I would just weep with joy, weep tears of blood if they made plastic Galvor boxes.
Like that'll ever happen.
Everyone will have Tactical Marines. I feel like there will be enough minute differences to make you feel like a Salamander player.
Make you feel like a special snowflake.
Well, not even a special snowflake. But
unless you're a Space Wolf player, because
oh god, they're their own people. But just the notion that I can put down a unit of Blood Angels and Erik can put down a unit of Salamanders, and there's enough differences to show, oh, that's what a Blood Angel would do.
Well, I love my Primarch more than you guys do, so a color scheme is all I need.
At least mine was the prettiest.
That's objectively true.
I think that really covers it. Have anything else you want to bring in?
I'm ready. I really am happy.
I'm ready for it.
I don't think they'll do what they did with Sigmar, where it was a year before we picked it up again, because I know we've talked a lot of positives about Age of Sigmar, but to even the playing field,
we used to hate it.
Didn't play for a year.
And then everything started being okay again.
They have a much better marketing team now.
Yeah,
development team. They know that people will care if you go out of your way to piss them off.
The amount of sharing that they've done, we're getting to see behind the curtain for, I don't want to say the first time, but in a long time.
So listener at home, just
the one guy.
The one little boy there.
Later when I'm listening to this for continuity.
Don't worry. It's gonna be good.
You're gonna have a good time with your pals. Or you could just go play War Machine.
Just Just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Go play games.
You'll be okay.
Go have fun.
Go play football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go play sports.
Go play
We can
Bubble.
play Bubble. Yeah,
Let's play Bubble.
We can play Bubble.
Okay.
Alright. Have your tailor-made net lists taken away from you.
You net listing bastard.
You scum. You piece of trash.
With that, we're the Power Creeps. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
Stay beautiful.
Hi, everybody.
It's taken away from you.
You net listing bastard.
You scum. You piece of trash.
With that, we're the Power Creeps. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
Stay beautiful.
Hi, everybody.